Quilting friends, it's Sarah Maxwell with Designs by Sarah J. I'm back to talk to you about how we're going to quilt the Just Squared table runner that I introduced last month. Now there's still time to hop over to my website, designsbysarahj.com, and grab the pattern and make the table runner top so you can quilt it. And I had planned to talk this month about the actual quilting, but then I heard from so many of you that were asking questions about batting and thread selection that I decided to focus on that, and then we'll come back next month and actually quilt the project. Now, if you've been quilting for any time at all, you likely have a favorite batting, and that's great. Use what you love. But if you aren't really sure about batting, then I have a couple of tips. Now, I know none of us can really get to quilt shows right now because so many of them have been canceled, but when we can get back to shows, I really encourage you to stop by the Hobbs batting booth and grab one of these batting samplers. So this is a collection of squares, they're about 17 inches, of all of the different battings that Hobbs makes. And it includes this great chart explaining which batting is what. Now what I like to do when I get home with one of these is take a Sharpie and write in the corner a number my chart, and that way I can take this apart and I'll know which batting is what. There's a couple of reasons I love to have this as a reference. First of all, I can see exactly what the battings feel like. I can see how thick they are. It will give me a real visual reference as I'm trying to decide on a batting. And secondly, I plan in the course of the coming months to quilt up some samples on each of these just to play around a little bit with the different batting styles and get an idea of how my thread reacts and my machine reacts to the different batting. So that would give me a really good resource in the future as I'm quilting a bigger project to know if I'm going to like the look of the batting in the project. Now personally, I often use 100% cotton batting. I really like the look of old quilts that have been well loved and washed 100 times, and they just get that crinkly, really nice look. So 100% cotton will generate that. For this table runner project, I'm probably going to use an 80-20 blend, 80% cotton, 20% polyester, because I know I'm going to wash this a lot if I use it, and the polyester just adds a little bit of strength to the overall project. So that's going to be where I lean for this one. Now, if you can't get to a show or you don't have access to those big batting squares, there is another option. Hobbs also has this trifold folder, and it includes, as you can see, small pieces of all of those same battings and an explanation of what is included in that particular batting and what it's good for. And then there's this handy just at a glance chart. This is something you can also usually pick up at quilt shows. Some shops carry them. I'm debating adding these to my website for purchase. So if this is something that would interest you, drop me an email, sarah@designsbysarahj.com, and if there's enough interest, I'll definitely add them. They're not very much. I've got to confirm the retail price, but it is something you could add to an order easily, or I can offer to you, like I said, if there's enough interest. So the next big question is thread. What kind of thread, what color am I going to use on this? And as a reminder, here's my project from the table runner Just Squared. This uses my full circle fabrics from Marcus Fabrics. And as you can see, I pieced one row of the blocks. The pattern actually includes information to piece up to 3 rows of blocks to make a larger runner, depending on how you plan to use it. And when I start looking at thread, the first thing that I always do is look at the background of the lightest piece, the background for my project. And one automatic go-to is to match your thread color to that. So this is a creamy white, and I'm planning to use finesse thread. This is the Grace thread, and it works really well on my Qnique 15R. And so this is a color called light wool, and it's just kind of a grade cream. And if you can see that, zoom in a little bit, it really perfectly matches the background shade there of my light fabric. And so it's going to disappear there. It will show up a little bit more, as you can see, on the colored pieces, but that's okay. I'm going to have a plan so my stitches look good. So one option, definitely this light background. As I was reviewing thread, I also thought, well, what if I went with a little darker shade? And so this is a color called Desert Tan. It's kind of a mushroom brown. And I looked at it, I pulled one string off, just one strand of thread, and it definitely contrasts a little more with the background. It would maybe blend in a little bit more with the colored pieces, but I just didn't love it once I got it out. So no harm, no foul. I'm going to just discard that one and move on to another choice. And so then I talked to you in an earlier month about variegated thread. And variegated thread moves either through colors or from light to dark of one color. And this is a color called Deep Forest Green. And I just loved how this blended across all the different fabrics in this piece. And one reason that I really love variegated thread is it can trick the eye a little bit. So if you're not 100% confident in your stitches, a variegated thread, because it's changing color, your eye will be fooled a little bit into deciding, is it the thread changing or is it the stitch changing? So for beginners, variegated thread's a great choice, and that's probably what I'm going to do on this piece. So the quilting, that can sometimes be the hardest part, to decide how you're going to quilt a project. In this month, I have a download for you that can help you with planning. Let me show you. So go to my website, designsbysarahj.com, look for the Downloads tab, and this month there will be a free download of 3 things in one document, one PDF. The first page will be the drawing of the quilt block that was in the Just Squared table runner. And I'm going to talk to you about how you use that. And then there's also a colored picture, how I colored one of the blocks in the quilt. And then finally, there is this line drawing of the entire project. And that has just a black and white line drawing of the entire table runner. So how will I use these? You might have heard of a concept called muscle memory. And basically, that's an idea where when we do something repetitively, our muscles in our brain just learn how to do that task without really consciously thinking about it. And I always think about cursive writing in this way. You know, we all learn to write cursively in elementary school. We learn those flowing shapes. And when we go to write in cursive now, we don't pause and think, how do I make an S? How do I make a Q? We just know how to do it. And so free motion machine quilting can be a lot like that. You want to have trained your brain to think about how you're going to move the needle so you have smooth flow. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the line drawing of the block, and I'm going to get some colored pencils, and I'm just going to audition different flow, whether that be loops, curves, feathers, whatever I think I might want to do on this. I'm going to try it out. That accomplishes 2 things. First of all, I can see if I like how the shapes flow across the block. And second, I'm going to start training my mind to think about moving that needle. Now, once I settle on a design for this, I'm going to practice that same design 2 or 3 or more times until I feel confident in moving it before I move on to the needle. I gave you the line drawing of the entire quilt because you might want to do different kinds of quilting in different sections of the quilt. You know, an all-over free motion design is great, but maybe you want to do something specific in the setting triangles versus the blocks. This will let you try out different shapes and get an eye visually, are those going to work together or are they going to compete with each other? So I found that drawing out my quilting ideas in pencil or colored pencil on just a black and white shape really will help me visualize where I'm going. Because the last thing we want to do is have to rip out stitches, start something and not like it, and then be faced with either trashing the project or doing some ripping. So this is really a good way to try stitches out, get an idea where you're going before you start. So go to my website, designsbysarahj.com, and download this PDF so you can try this out. I'm not going to show you yet what I'm planning to do on quilting because I want your creativity to shine here. And I'd love to see what you're planning for your own quilting. So head over to my Facebook group, Designs by Sarah Maxwell, or fearlesswithfabric.com is another place that you can do this. And then on Instagram, I'm at sjmax105. Hit me up on any of those channels and tell me what you're planning. I'd love to talk to you about it and just get imagination and a spark of creativity from you as well. So that's what we're doing this month. I'll be back next month to talk to you specifically about what I've quilted onto this runner. And thank you so much for spending some time with me here today. Happy quilting.